why do colleges need to raise revenue now, and what are some of the low-hanging fruit that they can find?
Sure. Well, first off, Janet, thank you so much for having me today and for everybody joining. When we think about revenue generation in college sports, there have been a lot of conversations this year that I never thought we'd have. Similar to, as Mike mentioned previously, we asked him, back in 22 about, I think, NIL, right? What would that look like? When we talk about revenue generation today, whether it's a family name on a stadium that we just had a conversation yesterday and said, hey, Jonathan, if you can find us a corporation that wants to put their name on our stadium or arena, and this is a high-profile school that you would never think this would happen for, like, we're ready to go. Jersey patches, while they haven't been approved yet, we certainly think that there's a real opportunity there. Multimedia rights, I don't think they've been as maximized as well as they can, and going after the right corporate partners, the right national sponsors, the right national partners. And then you look at what's happening right now too, field logos, the apron logo on the basketball court, so many different new assets that you've seen in professional sports for a very long time that are now coming to fruition in college athletics. Some schools are embracing them more so than previously, but you're seeing really every school want to have that discussion today versus 5 years ago. We're never putting a name on this stadium. It's always going to be XYZ Family Stadium, or we're never putting a jersey patch. It's sacred ground, I think one athletic director said. I think all that changes. I think everybody's focused on maximizing revenue, and when you look at the P&L of these athletic departments, I believe one of the athletic directors said this in the earlier session, right? Like, it hasn't been run like a very good business. And so what are some things you can put in place to talk about expense mitigation, but also revenue maximization? And then the word profit, right? That has never really been talked about in college athletics. The word profit is so valuable right now, and how do you get to that point? Because the word profit can get you better players. You can then work on trying to find ways to maximize NIL as well, to pay above the cap. And I think the most successful schools in athletics going forward will be the ones that are thinking outside the box and looking for those unique ways to maximize revenue.
How do you
do that, say, with ticket sales, something that has been the mainstay of bringing in revenue?
Yeah, so I kind of grew up in ticket sales. As I was telling somebody before, I've not been in this building since Bank of America laid me off back in 2011, but it's all worked out, so it's come full circle. And in ticket sales in the last 15, 16 years, you've really seen an evolution of I think two things. Number one, the secondary market. So many of you here are probably purchasing tickets, whether Knicks, Rangers, Yankees, whatever it may be in the local New York area, on StubHub, Vivid Seats, SeatGeek. Many of those tickets will come from companies like ourselves that are working with the entity, or what we call the rights holder, to maximize the return on those tickets. We might not want to price them as high as we do on the secondary for a general consumer on the primary, but we're going to do that on the secondary. So I think that's one way. The other way is creating new premium experiences. We've seen fans attend less events really since COVID happened, and we started to see this before COVID. But fans are attending less events, but they're spending more when they do attend those events. So if you spend $1,000 on 5 events last year, maybe you go to 3 events this year and you spend the same $1,000. So you're really trading up for the seats that you want to go into. Upper level seats, football stadiums, basketball arenas are very challenging to sell. Doesn't matter even if it's a high profile game. No one wants to sit there. We compete with TV and we compete with people's time. So how do you create more premium experiences and even reduce capacity in a football stadium or an arena to maximize the return on that? So creating new premium both inside the stadium or arena and outside, and finding those new real estate opportunities to put that premium in is so valuable to college campuses.
So we've been hearing a lot about private equity coming into college sports, but we haven't really heard any deals happening. How does it work, and how would they make money? How would they exit?
Yeah.
Explain that.
Yeah, so what's funny is there are many athletic directors, universities that say, hey, we're never going to take private equity. The reality is, though, we hand partners capital every day. The legacy MMR providers hand those schools capital every day, and they're all backed by private equity. So they're already effectively taking private equity. The private equity, I think, Janet, that you're speaking to is, will a entity come in and take a stake in an athletic department? I think the answer is yes. I think it's happening. I think there's a lot of closed door deals that are happening from that perspective. I'll be honest, I didn't think that would happen. I thought that would be very difficult. I do think it's much easier at a private school. I think Ross Bjork said earlier today as a public institution, I think that's going to be very difficult. That said, when Elevate announced our collegiate investment initiative, we had 2 deals that are already done, and ours are more focused from a debt perspective, right? So it's upfront capital. Ideally, we get paid back via revenue streams over time. But the difference between us and anybody else that's out there that's putting private equity to work in college athletics or says they will, we're an operator at heart. So I'm probably one of the few people at Elevate that's never actually been on the team side, build a technology company that Elevate acquired. But we have 500 plus people who have been at professional sports teams, colleges and universities, F1, various different entities that are working on the ground with our collegiate partners to help them maximize the return on that capital. And I think taking money from an entity that's not going to provide support is very different than taking capital from somebody that can help you operate more effectively, maximize the return on that capital, and help you grow. I think if traditional private equity, in my opinion, will put schools in a more challenging situation 5 to 10 years from now. They're really kicking the can down the road. They're solving an immediate problem today, but they're kicking the can down the road. Whereas I think our strategy, or if they're looking at it from a debt perspective, we're not taking an ownership stake. So sure, we might take a portion of a revenue stream over a period of time, but at the end of 10 years, when that new renovated stadium is built or a brand new stadium is built, we own nothing. The school owns everything, and I think that's what's most important, and that's what I think will be sustainable on a long-term basis. With all of our partners, we talk about sustainable revenue streams. It's so important right now to think about long-term and not just focus on the right now, because you're going to put your predecessor, if you're an athletics director, in a very tough position down the road if you sign a 10-year deal that siphons off a portion of your revenue streams, or you give up 49% of the athletic department, which could effectively happen and is probably happening as we speak.
So you're really talking more of a private credit fund than a private equity fund.
Yes, I've lost the finance lingo a long time ago, but yes, credit, debt, yes, exactly.
So, so what happens then after 10 years? What happens to the asset?
Yeah, so I mean, after, for example, the discussions we're having right now are how can we help you build, or how can we help you renovate a stadium? Most of the stadiums in college athletics, whether it's football or even basketball arenas, have not had a significant amount of renovations or capital put into those stadiums or arenas in the last 50 to 60 years. They've done some minor touch-ups here and there. Some have done more than others. But there's a significant need, not just for deferred maintenance, but actually to modernize these stadiums, to build some of the premium that we've talked about. And so if we're putting in, say, $100 million to a large university, ideally, we're putting that into a project that's going to generate incremental revenue. In 10 years, we're going to have payback on that $100 million, maybe plus a return, and we're helping them operate and maximize revenue. And ideally, we're putting them in a really strong position. So yes, in 10 years, they can manage everything on their own. Now, they might still want to keep us aboard from a consultant perspective to help them manage and continue to grow revenue streams. But the reality is, we want to put them in a better place then than they are today.
So I noticed one of your investors was a pension fund.
Yes.
Pension funds can't make $5 million investments. They have to make $50 million or even $100 million.
Yes.
Why are they looking at funds like this?
So I think when you think about the disruption that's happening in college athletics right now, the reality is, if I told you I know what's going to happen, I'm lying to you. No one knows what's going to happen. And we have 70 plus partners in the college space. We're talking to them every day. I think the reason that we're working with them is no one is more well positioned to not only access these campuses and the decision makers on campus, but also to come in and put that capital to work, make sure that they don't lose money, and also maximize the return on that capital for both our partners on the finance side, but then also our school partners too. I think that was a huge reason why they wanted to ultimately work with us and partner with us. And I think that's important, right? I think there's a lot of companies that are out there, or firms, don't want to name any, but the reality is, like, they are not operators at heart, and they don't have a group that's on the ground with 70+ universities already today talking to athletic directors. Right after this, I'm getting on a plane headed to University of Louisville and then headed to University of Florida, right? Two of our amazing partners, and we talk to them, we visit with them, we're at games all the time, meeting and understanding where we can help them maximize revenue.
Yeah, maximize revenue. It's not something you would think about in college sports 10 or 20 years ago, like its intensity today.
Yeah, I mean, when I started the initial company, Dynamic Pricing Partners, right, that Elevate acquired, trying to get people to understand raising prices to maximize the return on what I think is one of their most valuable assets, a ticket, was like pulling teeth, right? And it was very challenging. However, now, 95% of schools are leveraging our services or competitors' services in order to make that happen.
So one thing you probably can't control is, the price tag at schools. I was just on Bloomberg Radio earlier today talking about why is it $93,000? So why are colleges looking to maximize revenue if they have all this money coming in from tuition?
Yeah, I think when I went to Cornell, it was $46,000. So paying double that price, I can't even imagine right now. And my student loans would have been larger. But I think the reality is, I don't understand kind of the campus side of the business, but athletic departments want to show that they can operate as self-sufficient entities. And they've never been able to do that before, right? They're either operating at a deficit, they're getting economic support from campus or the state or whomever that is. And I think looking at this entire new environment, if they want to hit the rev share target, but then also ideally find additional ways to support their student athletes, I think it's so important to show that, hey, we're self-sufficient, we can be a profitable entity, we can also carry and help support all the Olympic sports. I think that's one of the most important things. Mike talked about a lot of the athletic directors earlier on stage too. I mean, 2 or 3 sports are going to carry the entire athletic department, but how do you find unique ways to add incremental revenue and value to continue to grow and support those other sports that aren't, but are so important to, I think, maybe many people in this room, but certainly across the country.
And last question, what has surprised you the most about money in college sports?
How much of it there is, and how much opportunity that are on all of these campuses that are untapped. I mean, we just signed a partnership with Auburn and our partners at Peachtree to bring concerts to these on-campus arenas. Everybody wants a stadium show, Morgan Wallen or whomever it is. We all do. I'd love to have 100 stadium shows. Reality is those are very few and far between. So how can we help them build sustainable revenue models at these arenas they already have on campus? They don't really have to do anything except turn the lights on. But there's so many other opportunities like that. We turned a storage room at one of our Big Ten partners into a new club space, charging $10,000 per person per year. There's no view of the field. They sold 100 passes, I think, instantly.
What's a club space?
So a high-end, all-inclusive club space between where the players walk out. So you can see the players walk out to the field. You can't see the field. There's a couple TVs in there. So you're going before the game, halftime, after the game. The reality is that was a storage room that was underutilized space. And so how do we, there's a lot of storage rooms in these stadiums if you ever walked them. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of, think of New York City real estate, right? Like that's what these stadiums and arena operators need, or schools need to think right? You can't underutilize that real estate. It's the most important asset they have, and it's very hard to create more, especially at a public institution and even private institutions. And so trying to find ways, either CapEx light opportunities to maximize revenue is something that I think we'll continue to see. You're seeing it on the field too. On the field, behind the end zones, if you watch most college football games, tomorrow, Saturday, you're going to see kind of end zone suites, right? Some are temporary, some are permanent, but those are easy, low-hanging fruit that nearly every school now is developing because they ran out of suite spaces and premium spaces. And so all these new areas to generate an extra 10, 15, 20K a game they add up. And when you're staring down $20.5 million and you're laying off staff, I think it's important to try to uncover every single dollar that you can.
So that's not helping with tuition.
Oh yeah. So back to tuition. I don't know a solve for that. I don't think tuition can continue to grow, but that's probably a completely different discussion.
Other conversation.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jonathan.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.